Hola y bienvenidos al podcast Un gato en tierra de perros, vuestra referencia para la política estadounidense, la cultura y mucho más. Hello, I'm Joe Magaja. Thank you, friends, for being with me for another episode of Un Gato en Tierra de Perros. Today I have with me Mr. Omar Navarro. Welcome, Omar.
How are you doing? I'm glad I'm here.
I'm good. I'm glad you're able to make it. Now, you have a very interesting story. I know you're a local guy, born and raised in California, but of Cuban parents, and you eventually got into politics. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one side of my family was born in Cuba. So my father's side, I was very close to my grandfather and my grandmother because I lived a portion of my life actually with my grandparents for almost 5 years while my parents were going through a divorce. And it was a difficult situation, for a kid that's like 9 to 14 kind of to go through an experience at a young age. My father, obviously from Cuba, he's from Havana. My grandfather was from a smaller town closer to Santiago of Cuba, and then my grandmother was from Milena. So totally different area. So I don't know how even they crossed together and everything, but I think my grandmother said she was driving or something. She was going somewhere, and then she kind of crossed paths with my grandfather along the way, which is kind of a beautiful story. My mother's side, they're from Mexico. They came here, legally. They came here with a visa, student visa. They studied here. They started restaurants here, businesses. So they obviously like worked their way to come to this country, and a lot of them were apart from each other for like 3 or 4 or 5 years while they were getting their paperwork process and getting their visas, and then obviously eventually that ended up in getting a citizenship in the United States. So it was through the legal process, and that's why I have a very hard confusion of why people come here illegally when it takes time to come here through the right process, but you're going through the front door, not the back door. And when you come through the front door, more than likely your life is succeeding, and not being some slave in this country is actually better for you. Because what happens is when people come here to this country and they do it the wrong way, they work for lower wages. They're here hiding. They're scared that any day they can get sent back to their respective country. Necessarily, some of them are not bad people. Some of them might be good people, but they're just not doing it the right way. And that's unfortunate, because it also has a lot to do with education. And I believe that the left in this country has radicalized the belief system to the point where people are no longer proud to come to this country through the legal process. They come here illegally now, and they promise to hand them citizenship on a silver platter when it should be earned. You should earn citizenship in any country. If you go to Europe, I have to learn the language. I mean, maybe in Spain, right? Might have a better shot because I know Spanish, and I have to obviously strengthen my Spanish. And they speak Castellano, so it might be a little bit different. So I might have to work a little bit harder. But it takes work, to go into any country. You can't just expect to just walk on in and not understand the way of life in that country. It's like customary, certain things like in Spain, certain things in Germany, certain things in Ireland. People are different, and you have to respect those countries. So when people come to America, it's no different. And I believe that a lot of people have forgotten the respect that you have when you walk into a country. And America is a beautiful country, a land of people that have come here from different countries and immigrants, but people have done it the right way, not the wrong way.
Yeah, and I agree. It's basically because when you open up your borders altogether, then what happens is what seems to have happened recently, which was similar to what happened with Mariel, where Carter said anybody from Cuba can come over, and then they just basically emptied all their jails and sent all their murderers to us. And it seems like Venezuela has recently done the same thing, and with Tren de Aragua. And there are even some people saying that the Venezuelan government is paying those gang members to kind of create chaos. And
Sure. And then you have the president from El Salvador, who, you know, I was listening. I admire him, you know, and you know, it's interesting because from having a background of Cuban and Mexican ancestry, right? Usually you have Hispanic and Latinos that they pit certain countries against each other. And as I've realized this growing up, like Mexicans do not like Salvadorians and Guatemalans for some reason. And it's a very common thing, you know. It's so Cubans don't like Mexicans. I just don't get it. But it's interesting though, from El Salvador, that president of El Salvador has done so much good for that country. And just the way he speaks and he talks and he says things and the way he's cracked down on crime in his country, I really like admire that. And he's really stepped up in a way that I have never seen anyone, you know, in outside of this country kind of have some type of backbone where they're putting their life in jeopardy. You know, as far as him, you know, he is definitely an example that those Spanish countries should be following because he is doing a tremendous job. And he also called out the United States for creating MS-13, you know, like that gang. He said, like, no, the United States sent back these people who ended up radicalizing these young kids in our country, and that's why we have this problem. And I'm like, you know, but this is something that was known for so many years, but I'm surprised that now it's becoming more of a thing where they're talking about it more. I'm very happy to see that so many people around the world, you know, even in Brazil, you know, you have Bolsonaro, you know, who got cheated, you know, hopefully, you know, he comes back in or someone that's like him. He was also an example. But I do believe that, you know, the world is changing, it is shifting, and people that are far to the left have gone insane. They are no longer these traditional progressive Democrats that wanted to kind of just, you know, simple things like, oh, we want to change this, something small. But now it's getting to the point where 13 different genders, 26 genders, 39 genders. What's next? You know, you know, I was raised that, you know, marriage is between man and a woman, not between a woman and a woman and a man and man. And but people want to do that. That's their choice. But you can't have government get involved in that matter, and you can't call it marriage, you know, because that's just, I think that's just delusional, and it's crazy to even call that marriage when it's not, because marriage is supposed to be between a man and a woman, not a man and man or a woman.
Right. Well, I what I'm yeah, there's so many different things that have been pushed lately, and it has gone crazy. I know
Yeah.
that uh in the news recently, I believe it was just last Friday, that a bunch of congressmen went and congresswomen went over to the Department of Education because Doge was auditing it
Yeah.
and tried to push their way in. And the gentleman stood up and didn't let them in because obviously they weren't there to do business. They were there to disrupt. And the person leading that was Maxine Waters. And you know a
Yeah.
little bit about Ms. Waters, don't you?
Yes, of course I do. You know, I ran against Maxine Waters in 2016. And I want people to understand this, you know, because a lot of people go in and say, oh, you're running against a high profile Democrat just to get your name out there, just to raise money. This is what people do. They move into these districts. And there are people who do this, and it's wrong. It's not right to do that. But I'm the contrary of that. I was born in this district. You know, I grew up in Inglewood, California, which is in the district. You know, when I was born in 1989, Maxine Waters was a state representative in that district, geographic district that I lived in. In 1991, she got elected to Congress. When she was elected to Congress, I was still living in Inglewood because I was a baby. I was only 2 years old with my family. You know, my family was living in Inglewood. Eventually, my family moved to Hawthorne, which is still part of that district. So I was, you know, there from elementary school to middle school. I went to York Elementary School. I went to Prairie Vista Middle School. So it's up until I was like 13 years old. I was living in that district. And then I moved to Torrance, but the part of Torrance that I lived in was also in that district. So I lived in that district my entire life. So when the Republican Party at the time, when I was very involved. I was just paying attention to candidates. I was helping them out, knocking doors. I was supporting a lot of people. I was the chairman of the South Bay Young Republicans, which, I was very involved in that way. So I was involved. I was very involved. And eventually I got asked, I'm like, hey, maybe you should run. And then I decided to run in the 44th district, which was a district that was next door. It wasn't even against Maxine Waters. But they told me, hey, there's a guy running there. Why don't you just run in your district? And I was like, who's the, I was like, oh, Maxine. I forgot about Maxine, right? So I was like, okay, well, and this is a person, that had tried to work in Maxine Waters' office. Again, remember, I tried working for Maxine at one point because I wanted to learn what it was to be, even as a Republican, I wanted to learn what it is to be in the House of Representatives. I wanted to learn the job. Necessarily, if I didn't like or disagree with the current representative, I just wanted to learn. And that was my mindset. But then I realized, it was so bad to the point where this representative, Maxine Waters, was not good. She was very ineffective. She was doing things that I didn't like. Like, for example, her in the period of 20 something years, like 26 years, only having 3 bills that she actually sponsored pass through Congress. And other bills that she co-sponsored were very minimal. So she was, in comparison to some congressmen, very ineffective in Congress for the period of time that she was in there. If I was in Congress for 27 years and I only got 3 bills passed, what does that tell you? A lot about myself, So that tells you a lot that you need to know about someone like Maxine Waters. She's very ineffective for Congress. So I started looking at numbers, stuff that she was voting for, things that she was supporting, and a lot of the things, other than the time that she kind of cracked down on the drug trade, going into where the CIA was working with the cartels, was selling drugs to the inner cities. Other than that, Maxine, that was a one good thing, and maybe I applaud Maxine for doing. But other than that, that's the only thing that she's done. So, I mean, you tell me that in 27 something years, now in 30 something years, that's all she's accomplished. That tells me that she's ineffective. She shouldn't be in that role, in that job. So when I looked at it at that time, in that moment, the Republican Party asked me, like, Omar, why don't you run against Maxine? I was like, you're in the district. You live there. You grew up there. You know it. Why not? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. But remember, in 2016, when I ran during the presidential election, when Trump was running for president, and no one ever thought he was going to win, and I went on interviews supporting him, believing in him, thought that he was going to win, I raised no money in the 2016 election. Nothing. It was zero. Like, it was like maybe $3,000 barely to cover the fee to get on the ballot. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. And then I ran again in 2018 because Trump won the election, and I was really inspired. I was more like believing in, like, wow, he could really do this, outsider, this can really be done. I really believe, that this, like an outsider can go in and shake things up. And I put my heart into it in the 2018 election. I really put my heart into it. And at that time, I decided to do it again. I never thought in my life that I was going to raise $1.2 million. I never thought that in my life. I went from a campaign in 2016 with $3,000 to a campaign in 2018 to 1.2 million. And I put myself out there, social media. I fought hard to get endorsements from Herman Cain. God bless him. He passed away. Good man. Helped me a lot. Sheriff Joe Arpaio from Arizona also helped me as well. General Flynn, who endorsed me as well, helped my campaign. Diamond and Silk, which one of them passed away. God bless. These are amazing people. And I had many other endorsements. Roger Stone, who advised the campaign at the time. A lot of people stepped up. And then because of that campaign, a lot of other younger people saw what I did in this race. Even though I wasn't completely successful, they saw the great things I did, that a lot of younger people after that I knew even at that time got inspired and ran in other districts across California, across the United States, many districts in Florida, and some of them even got elected to Congress, which I'm not going to name names, but it was amazing to see that in 2020. And considering I ran in 2020 as well, and I also raised over $900,000 again, and I did very well with fundraising. But just the district and the demographics, voter suppression, things that they can do with voting in that district. I mean, I am in the heart of Los Angeles, South LA. You have, Compton, you have Watts. I mean, that wasn't in the district back in 2018 because of redistricting, but because of redistricting, Watts and Compton got they put them back in the district for the 2020 election. So the district demographics changed again. But what the interesting part that the demographics didn't change in the sense of the Hispanic community. So it went from a 46% in 2016 and 2018 of that district being Hispanic to in 2020 of that district even rising more of the Hispanic demographics of 48% to 49%, which is amazing. I mean, so you have an entirely Hispanic community that is huge within that district. A lot of people think, oh, it's a black district. No, it's not. It's actually it's actually a minority in that district. It's not even the majority. You have all these white liberals and Democrats that are voting for Maxine Waters, and that's what's really keeping her in there in that power. It's not the blacks in the district. It's not even that. But people have this false idea of what the makeups of that district are. But if you look them up, you can obviously educate yourself on Ballotpedia, on different websites, and get a different educational history of it. Now, when I ran in the 2020 election, I had a Republican. Well, it's not even a Republican because he registered as a Republican, but in 2018, he tried running against me as a Democrat. And in 2016, he tried running under the Green Party. And then in 2020, he switches to Republican. So he switched parties like 5 times in a period of those years to run against me. And they put him against me, and he raises like $10 million because people, obviously, even on the right, use identity politics. So they throw money at this guy when he was even barely able to beat me by 100 votes, considering that he spent $10 million against my 900,000. And why did you say he spends $10 million and barely beats you by 100,000 votes? By 100 votes is because he gave 95% of his money to a fundraising company. So the real winner here was a fundraising company because obviously he didn't even keep 500,000 of the money for his campaign to be able to campaign against me. And I obviously didn't have a fundraising company taking that much money from me where I was unable to campaign. I was still able to perform and do very well, considering I didn't even win the general election, which was great. That I still got that far. I ran in 2022. I won the primary again. Guy didn't run against me. But there was a lot of shadiness that was done in between those campaigns. There was, false allegations against me that were thrown against me, people getting paid off to accuse me of things that I haven't done, say things that defame me. A lot of dangerous things, false articles. And again, these things led up to something. In 2017, Maxine Waters wrote an open letter to the Department of Justice into investigating me. I actually shared this on Twitter yesterday, the letter. I retweeted it, actually showing people the actual tweet and the letter she wrote from her Twitter account, her official Congress Twitter account. And she basically asked them to look into me over a letter I retweeted on Twitter. But what happened was the FBI found out that there was nothing that was done because I didn't do anything. It was just I retweeted something. And it was some guy in Ohio I heard from my lawyer that actually created this letter, whatever it was. I didn't even know who it is, nothing. But that's what I ended up finding out many years later. But what I found out is that triggered a constant investigation against me from the Department of Justice and the FBI to continuously look into me. So once I became a target, even though I wasn't guilty of something, they continue to go after me. So who was it that led the FBI to me and the Department of Justice? It was Maxine Waters. I mean, it's right there, plain and simple. The letter is open and public. It is out there. And she basically used a government agency to get rid of me as a political opponent. And the reason why she wanted to get rid of me as a political opponent was because I became a danger to her in her district. She knows very well that I was one of the only candidates in a period of 30 years to have mounted a credible, legitimate campaign against her. I had thousands of yard signs in that district. I spent $250,000 on direct mail in that district, to reaching out to Democrats, independent voters, not just Republicans. It was a lot to a lot of people across the aisle. I had billboards in that district, all over the district. I had my name everywhere. I had TV advertising all over the district, hitting TV spots in Univision, Telemundo, Fox News, like different spots. You could pick different spots on TV. I ran a good, effective campaign. Yes, I had friends that I brought in that I trusted to help the campaign. I brought in even my mother to help me coordinate events on the campaign. They didn't get paid much. But again, they went after them for basically allegedly saying that they gave me back all the money they earned. And to me, basically saying, oh, these people made barely $40,000 in a period of 4 years, each of them. And they're saying that I got back all that money. Why would someone risk their liberty, their lives? People have no criminal history, risk their ability to just risk everything over $10,000. It just doesn't make any sense. When I raised way more than that, obviously, if I was doing something like that, I would have paid them way more. Like Maxine Waters paid her daughter a couple $1,000,000 in a period of 4 years. So they're harassing my friend, my mother, over $10,000 a year, but they're not saying anything to Maxine Waters' daughter over $500,000 a year. It makes no sense to me.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was gonna say, Congress members tend to be millionaires, and they don't make that much through being in
Yeah.
Congress.
Yeah,
But
they make a couple 100,000 at most.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of it is
And that's
from,
not enough to be a millionaire.
yeah, yeah, exactly, insider trading,
Yeah.
lobbying. There's so many different ways that they can make money, and every time they come up for a vote, trying to get that dirty money out of politics or insider trading, they
Sure.
vote against it. Of course, you're going to vote against taking out corruption in your own in your own backyard. When you're living large like that. But it's crazy. So I believe I read a tweet of yours where you said that they raided your mother in
Yeah, I even have a video of it, but my mother is not comfortable with sharing it. So out of respect for her, I obviously never got around to sharing it. Me and my fiance were like, we both were like, she's like, you got to share it. She's like me in a way. So that's why we're together. Because she's a lot like me. And she was like, yeah, she likes roughing up the pot a little bit and like, putting it out there. But my mom's very conservative. She remembers she's a Catholic woman, like, grew up in a very conservative household. Her mother, was in a convent to become a nun, and then she obviously got married and all this, but my mom's a little bit different. But for what they did to her, showing up with 30 armed men, and this is, a retirement community, like it's pretty scary. The people that are there, I know a lot of those people are nice people, good people. This is not like, and this isn't a very good part of Torrance. And they just, showed up and like, like crazy. It was like, she's like, she calls the people and said, hey, can I go outside? That's what she told me. And can you like wait for me? I think I put on my clothes, and they're trying to rush her. They were like trying to rush her. It was like, it was pretty like crazy. They put my stepdad in handcuffs, who, has no criminal history again in this country, not once, ever whatsoever gotten anything. And they basically detain him there. And it wasn't necessary to do that. These are non-violent people. These are people with no criminal history. Um, it's just disheartening. It's crazy. It's saddening to even experience something like that. God, like knows that, what my mom went through at that day, or what her thought process was. But again, she ended up in the hospital that very same day because they denied her heart medication. So she got like some minor high blood pressure, like almost a heart attack in the process of it. So she was in the hospital. Once she got, I believe she got discharged from the hospital the next day, they took her straight to the court. Obviously handcuffed. I mean, it was pretty crazy. They even handcuffed her to the bed at the hospital. It was a little excessive. Um, and I believe because they denied her heart medication, they're open to a lawsuit at that point, because you can't deny someone a medication, especially that is um that is important to your health. It's something as serious as that. And she told them, and I'm sure they have recording. They're recording everything, so they got it on there. And then for them, and one of the she told me that one of the FBI agents or marshals, whichever it was, because sometimes they're together, had a shirt that said "lock him up." and Trump's
Mm.
face on it. So I told her you should get the video of the hospital that shows that FBI agent wearing a shirt that says "lock him up" on it, because that would be telling right there in itself. They were, these people were, I'm just, shocked that he would even include my mother into this, or even a very close friend of mine who they worked so hard, helping me, with very minimal payment to them, like for helping the campaign. When there's other people obviously made more, but it was crazy to even have like talked about it with her and what she went through, and what she's constantly going through now, just the stress of this, and how we feel like, the system is not going to be fair to us. How we feel that, even a jury would not be fair to us here in California, because it could be a very liberal jury that just hates Trump, and they'll find out we're Trump supporters and I'm Hispanic, and they'll try to nail me to the cross. And that's what they want to do. I mean, that's completely what they want to accomplish in this matter. Now I'm hoping, with this new administration, things change, and there's some shifts that go on in the DOJ, and there's people that get fired, and they'll start looking at this case hopefully soon, and they'll throw this out. This is what I'm hoping. But if that doesn't happen, look, my life is at stake here. My family's life, my mother, a close friend of mine who I care about, I can't even talk to. Um, it's very concerning.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the whole raid brings to mind that raid against Roger Stone that they did at Dawn. And, his
Same
wife
thing.
his
Same
wife is hard
same
of
thing, if,
hearing. And
if not worse. If not
yeah,
worse.
yeah. So it's still pending. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, the administration, the Trump administration would have power over that, because you said the FBI, so it's a federal offense that they're charging her with.
Yeah, with the DOJ, well, the FBI has no control at this point. It's the Department of Justice. So the DOJ, the FBI already, like, they just follow whatever the DOJ tells them. So this is the Department of Justice. So they would have to, like, I've heard that President Trump has been firing certain people from the certain offices and stuff, which I hope he continues to. And they start putting, other people that are less like vindictful against Republicans and people that have, obviously stood with Trump, because it's just bad. It's like, look at it this way. My family one part of my family came from a communist country where there would be political prosecutions against people for having even somewhat of a political opinion. I had a relative that got locked up for extra rations of rice, for a period of 12 years. Can you imagine getting locked up for 12 years because you just want to feed your family for extra rice? It's crazy. It's and this is exactly what a minor thing of what people have experienced, even with those January 6 cases, where they went after these people. Whether you like some of them or not, it doesn't matter. It's what's right and what's wrong. And it was wrong to have wrongfully have convicted some of these people. These people, even if they vandalize it, no one gives them an extreme sentence in the matter that they did. Even in a sense of, like, in the county, you won't even get like 3 months, 4 months, even 6 months max for something like that. So they went over and beyond, basically trying to treat them as there's some seditious traitors, which I thought was completely crazy that they would even treat them this way. These were people that love America and love America, and what they did to them was completely wrong. And what they did to I think Giuliani mentioned on the House floor that they went after 270 something cases, I think, other political cases other than the January 6 cases. So I believe that I was included in one of those cases, because he was also, they went after him. They went after other people, Bannon, Navarro.
Manafort
So
too, right? He was part of
Manafort,
the
yeah. So they went after a lot. They went after a lot. There was a lot of cases. Again, like, what about those cases? Because we already, the pardon was January 6th, pardoning those people. Okay, what about the other political cases that are still being targeted? Because there are other political cases.
Yeah, and
I'm not the only one.
yeah, for sure.
Giuliani's not the only one. Obviously, there are other political cases. So there's got to be a stop to this.
Yeah, I think it's really scary, and I think ultimately, with the J6ers, a lot of people in this country, if they just watch the mainstream media, they still believe that they were all violent, and they believe that 5 people died that day. The only people that died that day, Ashley Babbitt, and I believe there was another woman, but they were the protesters, and Ashley Babbitt
Yeah,
was shot by a police officer. So
which is a
it's
terrible thing to happen.
yes.
It's a terrible thing that happened. It makes me sad that that would happen, in our country. Again, remember the police and the government allowed these people to even walk in the Capitol. They took down the fences and stuff like that and allowed the people to just even get in. So there was an inside job in itself, and I do believe that without a doubt that there was some type of inside job going on here that set these people up for failure. And in a sense, that's what ended up happening. They wanted to do this. They needed to do this because they needed to create a narrative to go after President Trump, to discredit him, to put him down, and to try to lock him up, because that's what they tried to do for 4 years. They tried to imprison this man, and I call him the Teflon Don because he really is. They could not touch him. He got elected with pending cases president of the United States of America. And to me, that tells me that a lot of Americans wanted to send that middle finger to the rest of the other country and tell them that you're not going to take advantage of the system. You're not going to take advantage of people. We're tired of this idea and this whole woke agenda of putting men in women's sports, of 13 different genders. No, enough's enough.
And this is something that goes beyond really the our borders. This is happening in Europe as
Yeah.
well. And I think Europe is starting to get a feel for the shift. There's been a shift, like you said, Bukele in Latin America, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
Milei,
Yeah.
who did,
Hungry,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
there's a
Orban,
shift
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Orban, even Poland. I mean, there's a shift in a lot of these countries.
Mhm.
So they're in Germany. I mean, I know Italy has a shift too. England, it's they already had the shift, with Brexit. So they they're having the shift all over the world, and I'm not the best with international politics, but I do like read, I do look up things, and I do kind of well verse myself in understanding some of these things that are going on. But it's amazing to see what's going on across the world, just from having a basic understanding and kind of seeing how a shift has happened across the world. People are just fed up. Even Australia, Australia, New Zealand. People, I was doing interviews with people from Australia and New Zealand during COVID, and it was amazing. I felt like we were somewhat united. People that were like-minded on the right were united in a sense to stop this. And it's anybody actually that wanted to stop government oppression, of forcing us to take vaccines, forcing us to wear masks. People want to get a vaccine. They have a choice. They have every right to choose whatever they want to do. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. If they want to take the vaccine, go ahead. But no one should be forced to do anything. And that's where my problem is. Where I came from a family that came from countries that have corruption in one, and you have one that have government oppression and dictatorship and communism. So it's a whole thing where it scares me to see certain things like that, because the government should have a limited role on its citizen, not have a big role and a sense of control.
For sure, for sure. Well, has this experience turned you off to politics, or do you think you'll continue trying to make a way in politics in one way or another?
Um, it's one. I'll tell you this experience that scared me. In a way where I got in a shell like a turtle, and I disappeared for a while. For a very actually, a while. I was still doing videos. I was still posting about certain things, but I disappeared in a way where it just made me disappear. Like it really it made me think about things in another fashion. But at the same time, I don't want to be a coward. I don't want to, step away and say to myself, I didn't fight. I didn't do everything I could. to, because I'm not a coward, and I wasn't a coward when I stepped up to run for office. I ran consistently, whether people liked it or not. I did something about the problem. I didn't complain about it. I didn't just watch Fox News and say, oh, this should be done. No, I went out there, I actually did something. And by the way, I was 26 years of age when I was going out there to do this. I was 26 years old. I'm 36 now. So it was 10 years have gone by. I got involved in politics when I was 18 years old, 17. Well, actually, I was 17. So I've been in this for what, 19 years? 19 years. I'm 36 now. So being involved for 19 years in politics, I mean, and people thought, oh, I just came in 2016. No, I was involved way before 2016. I was involved when McCain was running for president. And I was 19 at the time. That was the first presidential candidate I actually voted for at the time, because I obviously didn't like Obama. McCain wasn't any better, but, I felt better about him than Obama, of course. But yeah, so that's literally what got my whole entrance in all of this. And I never stopped. I have a passion. I want to make a difference, and I want to be able to do something. I don't have to be elected. But I would like to maybe run again. I don't know. I might do it just because I want to stand up to her. I can't sit here and not do something about the problem. So, I'm going to continue to speak out as much as I can, because I'm not going to be put in this corner that I've been in for years now.
Well, that's good, because basically, yeah, as you've seen with the J6ers and with others, you can pay a very heavy price for it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
some of those people were held without even charges for over a year. And
Yeah.
I heard about one guy who had celiac disease, who couldn't process gluten.
Yeah.
They put gluten in his food on purpose. So he was having stomach cramps. He was basically being tortured the entire time he was there. And there's still, I think, at least 4 people that are being held on additional charges, because they can only pardon the federal charges, but state charges are separate.
Yeah. They
Um,
try to get you on the state as well, but they only do so much on the state charges, honestly. So I'm like, states, it's crazy to say, the federal charges are a little bit too absurd on the amount of time that they try to give to people on the federal side in comparison to state charges. Someone that's obviously had experience. I've been convicted of stuff in the past, and I've served time, did the whatever it was, I paid my debt back to society as a matter, and I terribly regret whatever happened, and I moved on from it, and I learned something, and that's all you can do. You can't hold on to something in the past. But that's what it is. That life is, a part of us always. We're not perfect people. We're gonna make mistakes, and it's to become better, in life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to do a short episode in Spanish about this as well. So I want to thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, they can go on all my accounts are at Real Omar Navarro. So it's REAL and then OMARNAVARRO. So Real Omar Navarro. And you can basically go on my X account on there, my Facebook, my Instagram, all my handles are Real Omar Navarro. So you could find me on any platform pretty much. Getter, True Social, which I'm not really active on. Actually, True Social's at Omar. This is Omar.
Wow,
And
that's
then
that's a
yeah,
get.
yeah. And then I have another account at Omar Navarro. That's
Yeah,
2 of them.
nice.
But it's easier to use the one that's at Omar.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks so much, and thanks to our listeners. And until next time.